For 22 years, a child had no name, no missing report, and no one looking for her. This is the true story of baby Hope. 1991. New York City was loud, crowded, and restless. A city that never slept. Sirens echoed through the streets, people rushed past each other, and life moved fast, unaware of what was about to be found. In a forgotten corner of the city, far from the noise, police stepped into silence. There, among garbage and decay, officers discovered something that stopped time. The body of a small child, no older than 4 years old. No screams were heard. No struggle was seen. Just a tiny body left behind. Detectives searched the area, but there were no witnesses, no clues, no answers. The most disturbing part wasn't how she died. It was that no one was looking for her. No missing person report. No phone calls. No family at the station. It was as if the child had never existed. With no identity, the case became a number, and the child became nameless. The media gave her a name, not from truth, but from hope. They called her Baby Hope. Hope that someone would come forward. Hope that someone would speak. But no one did. What no one knew then was that this silence would last 22 years. And the truth behind Baby Hope was closer than anyone ever imagined. Days turned into weeks, but no one came forward to claim the child. Detectives waited for the phone to ring. It never did. In a city of millions, not a single person reported a missing 4-year-old girl. That realization shook investigators more than the crime itself, because children don't simply disappear unless someone wants them erased. Police checked hospitals, shelters, schools, every system that tracks a child's life. Every search ended the same way. No records, no name, no past. It was as if the girl had lived completely outside the system. No school photos, no medical history, no official existence. Detectives began asking an uncomfortable question. What kind of life did this child live before she died? And who was powerful enough to make sure no one ever reported her missing? The case files grew thicker, but the answers stayed thin. Year after year, new detectives inherited the same cold silence. Baby Hope became more than a case. She became a failure the city couldn't forget. But hidden inside the silence was a truth waiting to break. And decades later, one piece of evidence would finally speak. Years passed, and the world changed. But Baby Hope remained frozen in time. New detectives reopened the file, carrying decades of unanswered questions. Technology had advanced, and investigators decided to try one last time. Evidence collected back in 1991 was brought out of storage. For years, it had been silent, untouched, forgotten, waiting. This time, science would speak where people never did. DNA was extracted, processed, and entered into national databases. Investigators waited, knowing this might be their last chance. Then, something unexpected happened. The system returned a possible family connection. For the first time in over 20 years, Baby Hope was no longer invisible. Investigators followed the lead carefully, one step at a time. Each discovery brought them closer and made the truth harder to ignore. A name began to form behind the scenes, a name that meant this child had a family and a past. But giving her a name would also reveal something far darker. Because the truth wasn't pointing outward, it was pointing inward. After more than 2 decades, the nameless child finally became someone. Investigators confirmed the identity the system had quietly uncovered. Her real name was Anjelica Castillo. She was 4 years old when her life was taken. For the first time, Police knew where she came from. She had family, she had relatives, she had a history, and yet, no one had reported her missing. That question changed everything. Investigators began contacting family members one by one. Some conversations were short, others were uncomfortable, but one name kept surfacing again and again. A person who had access, a person who was trusted, someone who was family. The investigation quietly shifted direction. This was no longer a hunt for a stranger. It was a hunt for the truth hidden inside the family. And soon, investigators would come face to face with someone who knew exactly what happened. The detectives didn't rush him. They invited him to talk. He sat calmly, answering questions as if this was just another conversation. At first, he spoke about family, memories, and the past. Nothing in his voice suggested fear or guilt. But detectives noticed something small, something off. When Anjelica's name was mentioned, the room changed. His hands tightened, his breathing slowed. For the first time, silence filled the room. Detectives let the silence do the work. Minutes passed. Every second felt heavier than the last. Finally, he spoke, but not to answer a question. He asked for water. His voice was quieter now. Then came the words detectives had waited decades to hear. "I need to tell you something." The confession didn't come all at once, but with every sentence, Baby Hope's silence finally began to break. The room stayed quiet as detectives let him continue. His voice trembled now. The calm was gone. He admitted he knew exactly who the little girl was. She wasn't a stranger. She wasn't lost. She was family. The man finally said the words out loud. Anjelica Castillo was his cousin. The detectives didn't react, but the weight of the truth hit hard. He explained how she lived under his control. No school, no doctors, no outside contact. That was why no one reported her missing. The system never knew she existed. Then his voice dropped even lower. He described the night everything ended. No accident, no mistake. It was intentional. And what he confessed next would leave even veteran detectives shaken. Detectives asked him to slow down and start from the beginning. He took a deep breath, as if reliving a night he had tried to forget. He described a quiet night. No witnesses, no interruptions. Anjelica was with someone she trusted. There was no sudden chaos, only control. He admitted she never had a chance to escape. Detectives listened without interrupting, writing every word. His confession was calm, almost rehearsed. He explained how he believed no one would ever connect the dots, because for years, no one did. When he finished, the room stayed silent. Even experienced detectives struggled to process what they had just heard. This wasn't a mystery anymore. It was a tragedy that had been hidden in plain sight. The confession was officially recorded. For the first time in 22 years, the truth was no longer buried, but justice still had one final chapter left to unfold. After the confession, the case officially moved forward. For the first time, Baby Hope's killer was no longer just a secret. The man was taken into custody without resistance. There was no anger in his face, only emptiness. Prosecutors prepared for a trial that would finally close the case. After 22 years, justice finally seemed within reach. But the story was not finished yet. While in custody, the man's health began to decline. Days passed, then weeks. Before the case could reach a courtroom, something unexpected happened. The man died while in custody. There would be no trial, no verdict read aloud, no sentence handed down. For some, justice felt incomplete. But the truth, at last, was known. And now, the city had to decide how to remember baby Hope. With the investigation over, the focus finally shifted where it always should have been. Not on the crime, but on the child. For decades, the city knew her only as Baby Hope. Now, New York finally spoke her real name, Anjelica Castillo. She was no longer a mystery. She was no longer a case number. She was a child who had been seen, too late but not forgotten. Detectives who worked the case spoke about her quietly. Many said her case stayed with them longer than any other, because she reminded them why cold cases matter and why time should never be an excuse to stop searching. Across the city, people paused to remember her story, a child who lived in silence and left in silence, but whose truth was finally heard. Baby Hope was never just a nickname, it was a promise, one that would be fulfilled in the final chapter. The case was closed, but the story did not end, because some stories leave marks on a city forever. For 22 years, Baby Hope was a question without an answer. Now she was finally known as Anjelica Castillo. Her name returned her humanity. Her story reminded the world why every child matters. Detectives said this case changed how they saw their work. It taught them that time never erases the truth, and silence does not mean innocence. Baby Hope became a symbol for the forgotten, a reminder that every victim deserves a name, and every truth deserves to be heard. Justice did not arrive perfectly, but it arrived honestly. The city did not forget her, and it never will. Because hope is not just a word, it is a promise. That no child will ever disappear without a voice again. We tell the stories that should never be forgotten.